Howdy guys, how you going? My name's Leki.
And I'm Aarvi.
And we have an unnamed vlog here still, but this is Season 1, Episode 2. And the theme of this vlog today is sharing with you some of the people that we follow, interesting personalities. And these themes that we'll be spelling out of these next couple of weeks will be repeated in that sort of fashion. So we're going to go back to back. So Aarvi's going to just describe one of the people that he's been following, and we'll go from there. Enjoy.
Yep. So this is the first of my top 3 that I follow on Instagram. It's, as you can see, the Australian Strength Coach. If you can zoom in closer to have a better look. So pretty much the reason I follow him, I'm big into my gym, and he's one of the best coaches in the world. If you follow Game of Thrones, the Mountain, or Hathor Bjornsson he goes by, Thor, that's his trainer, and he trains like Marty Tapau, Paul Gallen, and they're pretty big rugby league players. Sonny Webb, he's a massive Olympic lifter, and Kevin Ewan, who holds the biggest bench press for under some weight category, but in Australia. So some big athletes, and he's a powerlifter himself. So and he has some records as well, Australian records. So he's pretty big from what we're seeing. But the reason I really like him is he all his lifts, he puts it all on Instagram and he critiques it, and his form is everything for him. And I went to his workshop, and technique overrides everything, because his philosophy is you want to be lifting forever. Because you see some big people have incorrect technique or have a different technique, they usually crash within 2-3 years after their big lifts. But his goal is to keep going instead of reaching a plateau, because there's no such thing. Even Ed Cohen said that. So that's why he's a big personality for me on Instagram, because he breaks it down for everyday people, so lay people. So all the stuff he says can be understandable for someone that doesn't understand anything, no terminology, to someone like a medical professional, because he puts it in words that's easy to comprehend, and it's pretty spot on. So he's very good with the deadlifts, the squats, and the bench press. They're the 3 main lifts, but he's amazing coach, trains all different kinds of athletes, and he just puts technique first. Once you get the technique, you'll develop speed, develop power, you develop everything else. So check him out. He leaves loads of free information, and that's his goal, because he's up there. So that's my number 1.
Nice. Yeah, and I can vouch that, because I hadn't come across Andrew and Sebastian rather. So Sebastian has a lot of great information there for a newbie viewer, so I highly recommend that too. Alright, my guys, so before I start with mine, I thought my 3 influences that I follow that would be interesting, it'd be a recommendation for you. One would be someone that helps me, say, on the inside, and then one would be somebody that helps me on the outside, and then the third one's a bit of a curveball. So the person that I'd recommend, or someone that I really enjoy their information, is Dave Asprey. And just a bit about Dave. He's like a computer geek sort of guy, so he's a computer engineer, a computer hacker. And so that type of person thinks about the world in a certain way. And he had his own health problems, and from that he wanted to systematically figure out what was going on that was affecting with his health. So personally, it jives with me, because I have a big longevity perspective in terms of my health. And so a lot of the information, particularly with Dave's Bulletproof podcast, he interviews a lot of thought leaders, industry leaders, scientists, people from the whole spectrum in terms of health, private and public, on what they're currently doing to biohack, basically, their health. And I think that really syncs with me in where I'm at with my stage in life. And for the most part, if I was to try and keep this quite general and macro looking, is there's sort of 2 sides to the same coin. So for example, I'm subscribing to a certain food and eating strategy, but at the same time, I'm not wanting to be too dogmatic in following that one particular game plan. So for example, I practice personally a cyclic ketogenic type of game plan, and I interlace that with some intermittent fasting. But I don't stay in a fasted state. I don't stay in ketosis 24 hours. But for 80% of the week, I would be. So for a lot of the science that I'm following, a lot of the thought leaders that are giving all the latest information, it seems like that even though they have different perspectives, they all are aligning along the same ideas. So for me, I'm looking at things that help improve my lifespan and quality of life. And being 34 years old, with a lot of my peers, a lot of the guys that are similar aged, right now I'm making decisions that may not look like there's a big return. I'm jumping in an ice bath and freezing myself every Sunday for 3 minutes. And, I don't have to do that, but I choose to. I don't have to eat certain foods or I choose to eat certain foods. But my belief is making these decisions now as a 30-year-old will start to develop some returns when I get to 50, 60, 70 years old. So a big guy that I follow is Dave Asprey. A lot of his guests on his programs, his blog posts, scientists, industry leaders, as I've said. So I like that there isn't just one person that's giving his particular doctrine. I like that he also interviews people of the opposing view, and then they have a really good debate and they come to an idea where, because everything's all new knowledge, so the science is ever evolving. So Dave Asprey, that's a big shout out to Dave. I'm a big follower for 5 years now, and I'd recommend you check him out. Cheers.
I might have to check him out as well. All right, so I haven't heard too much about Dave, but might have to have a look. All right, so my second one, it's still on the strength kind of area. As you can see, I love my strength, and strength and conditioning especially. I'm trying to keep fit as well. So this one's actually a physiotherapist, at Andrew _LOC _strength. And that's a closer look. Cool. So he's pretty much a rehab physio that's really focused on strength. So he's a physiotherapist that I aspire to be. So he's been in the game for a long time. He can also bench over 200 kilos, and he's over 50. So that's an Australian record as well. He's a big boy as well. He's a machine, trains pretty hard. But the reason I really follow him is the stuff on his Instagram. So he always posts free stuff, always thinking, he's always learning. He's posting all these rehab strategies, all these techniques that can help, like the butt wink, shoulder issues, if you have any issues, how to turn on specific muscles. So I've stolen a lot of his, I've used a lot of his work and started using it in the clinic, a lot of his activation stuff. And yeah, it's made a big difference into my treating people, and then trying to incorporate that into my own self. Like when I'm lifting, I'm doing all the activation stuff that I learnt from me. So I went to so both of them did a seminar deconstructing the gym lifts. So paid $1,000 for it. It was pretty good, like definitely worth the money. And they both ran that side. So I learnt the 3 big lifts and some rehab strategies that Andrew went through. And yeah, ever since then, I've just everything's Bible for me. So pretty much whatever he says, I'm like, yeah. And then I look into the research, and it all makes sense. So he's very anatomy based. So everything's anatomy. So, and then he looks into the research. So loves his work on his glutes, and I've noticed a big difference. That's taken away like my knee pain, especially when I was squatting. As soon as my glutes stop firing, I start to get knee pain because I overload it. And yeah, so doing a lot of work there, and then I've started doing it for my clients as well, trying to turn those glutes on, because that's hip drive's probably one of the biggest things that I found. And yeah, so definitely check out his Instagram, because he gives out a lot of free content, and it's, yeah, everything's like Bible for me, so might be for you as well. So check him out. That's his Insta again. And yeah, so that's my second one. So I'll pass it on to Leki.
So just backing up on Aarvi's point there, so I do highly recommend Andrew as well. So a lot of his information I've incorporated and modelled in my own practice. So yeah, I've followed him, and he's doing great work. Another group of guys that I also follow, so I'm moving to, so Dave was sort of the internal guy who looks after my insides. I've been subscribed to the Prehab guys, or one word, the Prehab guys. And these guys are a group of physical therapists because they're American based. There's about 4 of them, and they all work in sync and give a lot of free content again on Instagram. And they have infographics, they have videos, they have, if you choose to, subscribe to some of their, to a library of different exercises and bits and pieces from a rehabilitation standpoint. So if you're injured and trying to come back to life, or mostly the whole shtick here is prehab. You know, people that are wanting to tighten up some cogs and improve their movement, improve their performance in sport, and they've got some really good, great stuff that's all free. So I highly recommend the Prehab guys. For a lot of people that I've been treating, they'll probably notice that there's a lot of exercises or protocols that I follow that's modeled on a lot of the stuff that they have. And plus, a lot of their evidence-based practice is they also add in the scientific literature to the exercises that they give, and the rationale for the loading as well. So the way that you would rehab a ligament, for example, would be very different if you broke an ankle and you're trying to come back from a joint, a broken bone. Or if you had a hip replacement and you're trying to come back from that, would very differently if you went and had a spinal surgery. So I really like these guys. We're from the same, we're cut from the same cloth, sort of thing. And the the vein here is that they're very proactive in avoiding injuries. So they're big on injury prevention, and they're also really friendly too. So their stuff is very bite-sized. It's not too long, and it's actionable. So for most of us that are time poor, you just really want to get to the gold nugget straight away. So I highly recommend the Prehab guys. They go really well.
Yeah, so I follow the Prehab guys as well even when I started studying, because they give out great exercises. So they start from the beginner version all the way to the advanced that high level people can do, and that's what you don't really see in other places, because you get to a point where you're like, what do I do now? But at least these guys give out heaps of variety and just give different kinds of exercises that you can keep pushing through and make it harder for yourself. And they explain it as well in their description, so which is really good, and they're pretty easy to understand. So Sebastian and Andrew are my 2 clinical side people I follow. So third one's a bit out there.
This is the curveball.
So this is Dan Bilzerian. So most people really know who he is. Give you pretty much an overview why I follow him. Pretty much, who wouldn't want to live his lifestyle? All girls surrounded by models, girls everywhere. He's got loads of money. He's got a good rig on him as well. He's an ex-Navy SEAL, so that's pretty good. So pretty much, he's a poker player that made heaps of money. So he did have a bit of money beforehand from his dad, but won a couple of big hands, and and he just flew off from there. And his Instagram's full of quality stuff he does, just gym, just enjoying life, really, just making the most of it. And the main thing is there's always honeys next to him, and they're pretty good looking. So I do get a bit jealous watching his Instagram, but just living the dream. So he's probably why I follow him. I love seeing all his videos. It makes me want to be like, I can achieve that. Just give it time. Probably not to the same standard, but that's why I follow him. Give it a sus.
Got to win a few big hands, I reckon. So in the same vein, I am throwing a curveball. A guy that I like to tune in if I just need a laugh or just figure out what he's up to is Big 50. I am a big fan of 50 Cent because, I grew up. So when I was in year 12, his big breakthrough album dropped. So a lot of those early songs reminds me of when I was at the peak of my powers in year 12, back end of high school. So a lot of the discos and things that you get out to, but more so because he's a needle mover. If you look at his tough surroundings. So yes, he may have started off as a rapper, but then he's gone on to start labels. He started clothing companies. He's pushing out a few different types of beverages, and he's a really good business-minded person, like a hustler, I understand, but for someone that has your back against the wall, very entrepreneurial spirit, never say die attitude. If he was in a different circumstance and he was a bit more privileged, let's say he went to university, I'm not sure if he may have had the same grit to persist when some curveballs were thrown his way. So I just like that he has a whole different type of personality. You know, he has had a lot of beefs with different people, and it's entertaining for me as a casual observer. But I pay attention to a lot of the moves. So now he's in movie production. He's putting together like a series that I like, Power, and a few other things that's coming down the line. And he has a large following there, but I think he's kept his credibility from his origins. But he's also moving into another world where, you know, being bankers, for example, big corporate types, is rubbing shoulders with these types of people that you wouldn't have thought you'd seen in New York streets, you know. So I think not being a person of, not being handed anything, and that he really worked hard to get where he is, and he continues to work, even though that he has his riches. You know, you can see that he is driven to jump out of bed and push forward with his life and troll people along the way too. So if you're up for a laugh and you're interested to see how, you know, hustle and grind can get you, I enjoy 50. So I think 50 and Dan, they're kind of on the same vein. They're living a life there that we all, you know, wish for and we're working towards. But yeah, I do giggle at night sometimes when I see some of these things online.
Yeah, definitely. I think 50 Cent's the king of trolling. So wasn't it the one who's he had the beef with, who was it? And he bought the whole
Ja Rule, yeah.
brought the whole front section of his concert.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. So empty front seats, pretty good buy, and made a good laugh. And he's done a lot of other stuff. Like his trolling's pretty good. So
it's immense.
Yeah. So that's our top three. Two would say serious ones that we really follow and put into our clinical and like personal life, and then one that just Instagram. You got to have something on your newsfeed to make you laugh or jealous or whatever. So they're our top threes. Hopefully, we'd like to hear your top threes as well in the future. Just tag us or something. Just give us a mention and tell us your top threes, and we'd love to talk about it and just discuss that as well.